Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Oh, right. Kirby and the Forgotten Plant.
There are a few plants in this desert that might have been forgotten.
You say potato. I say potato. Was that, like, part of the script, I wonder, for that? Okay. In the Saturday.
For Saturday Night Live. Yeah, that was planned.
Okay. I do wonder, though, for Saturday Night Live in particular, how much stuff is improv in that. Like
that's a heavily scripted show because they don't want things to go awry.
Because
of its live nature.
Yeah, that makes a good amount.
Obviously,
of sense.
They can't prevent people from chuckling on set and stuff like that, but
I don't really watch it anymore. In high school, I watched it live a lot.
Did you see the Pedro Pascal Mario Kart?
Only part of it. I saw
it's the closest we're ever gonna get to The Fast of Us. So
The Fast. Oh my god. Oh Jesus. Oh man.
You know you want it. You know you do.
I mean, they still haven't made Uncharted yet. How could they even do The Fast of Us? It would be out of order.
They worked elements of Uncharted into Uncharted 4.
Do you like there's always been like driving sequences in Uncharted, right?
Yeah.
So I guess those count.
But like Uncharted 4 sort of flirted with a more open-ended design for certain parts of it.
Okay. Have they ever confirmed if Naughty Dog is doing something new at any point?
Apparently the rumor / thought is that they're doing some very multiplayer thing set in the world of The Last of Us.
Okay. That might be neat. I don't think that Naughty Dog has worked on a majority multiplayer game since the Jack karting game, so that is interesting for sure. I just I don't know. I'm personally just not excited for the idea of that because The Last of Us as a brand doesn't do anything for me.
The Last of Us already had a multiplayer mode in it, as I recall.
And apparently people liked it, so...
The question is, will they do anything interesting with it? Will it just be another remix take on the usual popular multiplayer mods, or what? Because, one of the paradoxes of multiplayer game design is that all the interesting multiplayer concepts are usually in the unpopular niche area. You have frickin' Resident Evil Outbreak, which is a multiplayer take on single-player Resident Evil. You have stuff frickin' the one or two RTSs that aren't just Warcraft.
Well, that's that's another thing about competitive-minded gamers don't like variance. And that makes sense because if you're playing a game to win, you don't want chance time to screw up your win at the last 2 turns. That's fair. With that said, unfortunately, what that means is that many interesting game modes and stages usually get banned from competitive events or just are not played. So instead of playing a lot of the cool maps that people it tends to feel very samey from a non-enfranchised point of view.
Well, I'm not even talking about stuff like that introduces a random or hazardous element into it, or hampers the pure skill focused nature of a game. I'm talking about different gameplay styles.
So you're talking about first person shooters that stray away from the typical Call of Duty kind of formula.
Yeah, there are styles of first person shooter that are more focused on the simulation aspect, and you don't really see that. There are a few games, 1 or 2, that have attempted to translate that idea into multiplayer, and they can be really interesting for the players who get into them. I can't think of the titles off the top of my head because this is a topic I haven't looked into for
it's also
many
almost
moons.
like this channel is not really a first-person shooter channel.
First-person shooters as a genre are kind of a sore point for me because they are very, 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 very prone to monkey see, monkey do design. Like the Call of Duty formula became really popular for a while, so everyone was basically aping that formula.
It was a pretty tiring genre for a long time. Like from like 2007 to like the mid to late 2010s, it was the dominant one. So it was kind of a sore spot for many people, not just you. Where Pac-Man platform, sorry, I get distracted. It was a sore spot for many people where it felt like there was a new FPS coming out every week, and many other genres felt like they were never getting anything.
And it was always the same. It was always the same. It was always the same take on the FPS genre. Not necessarily the same game, but the same subgenre, the same general approach to things, the same set of multiplayer modes, maybe one or two thrown in here and there to mix things up, the same general spread of weapon types, the same 2-weapon limit system, which I hate. They always tried to build that as more realistic too, but really it was just the genre trying to make up for the fact that they no longer had keyboard number buttons to switch weapons quickly with.
I mean, that never really was a problem for many other games. Like in GoldenEye on N64, you can hold a crap ton of weapons at once. You just like you have to toggle between them as you go, but like you can still hold them.
The problem was that there was this really big stigma for a while against needing to stop the action for any length of time to manage your inventory. And the inherent problem with the button economy on consoles in particular is that you don't have the array of additional keyboard keys needed to quickly switch between multiple weapons. So up until the innovation of the analog-controlled weapon wheel, shooters fell into this mode of only being able to hold 2 weapons at a time so you could switch between them quickly with one button. But, and like even some other games and other genres fell into this. The Tomb Raider games by Crystal Dynamics, Legend, and Underworld, or at least Legend. I'm not sure if Underworld kept this limitation. You would always have your pistols, and you could pick up one additional weapon to go with it. And so instead of carrying all your weapons with you throughout the entire game and being able to find special weapons early if you found a secret area, you just picked up whatever stray weapons the enemies dropped, and you could only carry one. And so the idea became, you're going to start every level with a specific extra weapon, and you're going to want to find the one that is most effective for your playstyle and stick with that for the entire weapon and never experiment with anything else.
Yeah. I don't know. I just really appreciate that gaming in the modern day, so many more genres are resurging, and we have so much more variety now.
Yeah.
It's just a really nice breath of air.
I mean, it's a good time to be alive. The designers have figured out effective, consistent ways to do certain genres well outside of their original intended control context. So we have the weapon wheel for weapon switching in shooters and stuff. We have established conventions for doing point-and-click adventures on mouseless gaming platforms. So that's nice. I mean, holy shit, that took forever to happen, but we're finally getting more love in that genre.
Text-based? Yeah, for sure.
Not text-based, but point and click.
Yo, I would take a text adventure. Like you could definitely. Actually, you know what? Emily is Away is effectively a text adventure game. Have any of you guys ever played that?
Can't say I have.
No, but like
it's either free or like $1. You should try it out if you ever get the opportunity.
For a text adventure. The only operable way to do that on a console is basically the way that text-based games have been doing it since Ultima 4 on the fucking Master System, and that's just to replace the text input with a bunch of keywords. Which, to be fair, worked fine for Ultima 4, but that's a simple-ass 80s game. So...
Yeah, I remember we were talking about that in the last time we met up, so this is probably like 5 or 6 parts ago. But I still am shocked that they haven't thought of trying to make more Ultima games in the modern day. Like,
well, the Ultima series ended pretty definitively. It ended terribly, but definitively. So basically the only thing that they have to continue for that franchise is Ultima Online.
yeah. Ultima Online's like 1 billion years old, though, isn't it?
Yes, and still active, sort of.
You know what? Good for them. I'm proud of you, Ultima Online.
Still a paid game, even. It hasn't gone free like EverQuest.
You know what? That's actually impressive. Because you'd think that like it would have gone free to play at some point. After being literally mankind's oldest video game.
That's the usual model for old MMORPGs, is going free to play for their core and offering like a paid premium subscription and occasionally a paid expansion. Hell, even some newer MMOs do that. Star Wars: The Old Republic. I'm looking at you.
It's so weird. Dragon Quest X in Japan is free to play. Like the entire thing, I believe, is free to play, but like only for like 2 hours every afternoon. And it's I might be misremembering it because it's like the only Dragon Quest game I know basically nothing about, because we're never getting it, and I gave up hope a long time ago about that. But if I remember correctly, there's like children's hours is what it's called, where anybody can play for free, and it's like 2 or 3 hours in the afternoon in Japan. And then if you want to play any other time, you have to have a subscription. So it's like, I mean, the game is old enough for it to basically have the same free-to-play model that you're talking about. Game came out in like 2010, so it certainly is old enough for that. I don't know what the hell they're drinking over at Square Enix.
The inherent problem with MMO free-to-play models is that they kind of need to have some alternative revenue source, and for the most part, that mostly amounts to pay-to-win nonsense.
Yeah, because like an MMO, you can't keep running for any kind of multiplayer online game. Like, even if the team isn't supporting it anymore, you need to pay to have servers running. So you can't like let it run. Like, you have to have some kind of income for the company to be able to keep that going.
Yeah, and even though the MMOs that avoid pay to win, when they're in the free to play model, they at least have to include some sort of pay to win adjacent mechanic. So it's like you can't really just subsist on nothing but cosmetic DLC.
Yeah, because eventually you either run out of players who are interested in it, or everybody buys it, and then there's nothing else for them to buy, and you stop getting money that way.
And that leads to some unfortunate unavoidable design problems. Like the Elder Scrolls Online, one of the big draws of an Elder Scrolls MMO would be the immersion of being in a big immersive online world. But because they went free to play, they have to sort of lean into the less immersive, gamier mechanics, like here's your daily premium subscription bonus or whatever. And
I also know that like daily challenges is a big thing for like MMO grinding and whatnot, which is hard to make feel natural in a world like that.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing that naturally evolved from the World of Warcraft-esque MMO Holy Trinity design philosophy, where, instead of the gameplay itself being able to carry the day in terms of being tactically or skillfully engaging, they sort of have repetitive gameplay cycles, and the only way to make that interesting over the long term is to lean into stuff that addicts you to the loop, you know. So things that make the act of grinding addictive, essentially.
Yo, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of video games where they are trying to keep you playing over a long period of time do rely on a lot of problematic psychology in order to keep people playing.
Yeah. I'm sure there have been many long-winded think pieces on this particular subject in relation to World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft is interesting, though, because it starts from a particularly lackluster design principle, and it just sort of like had to build on top of that over time. Because when you think about it, the World of Warcraft formula began its sort of content design philosophy from a fundamentally single player perspective, which was kind of unusual for MMOs of the time.
What was about it was single player focused?
Well, a lot of its content is based around one player going around the game's world and completing quests. And whereas in older MMOs, the game kind of required you to shift into a multiplayer methodology right from the word go. You were intended to find some friend that you knew who wanted to play the game with you, meet up with them early on and quest together. The World of Warcraft formula, which is also the formula used by like the main quest in Final Fantasy XIV and many other games, is effectively a single-player RPG in an MMO. You go from quest to quest, completing objectives by yourself most of the time. There's not much about those quests that encourages or rewards or even makes fun out of multiplayer. So most of the multiplayer content is sectioned off, and you do that separately at a different time whenever you feel like you want to do it. And it's kind of a fragmented gameplay experience, to say the least. But that's the direction MMOs went, because that's the direction, it turns out, that makes MMOs most convenient for anyone to play whenever they have the time.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense, because you have like the MMOs where like you can do single player stuff if your friends aren't on, and then you can do multiplayer stuff when they are.
The old MMOs, like the very original EverQuest and stuff, they were all kind of limited by the same considerations that you'd have if you were playing a tabletop game, compounded by considerations like, has another group of players gone through this dungeon and killed all the monsters and taken all the loot? If they have, I'm going to have to wait so many hours for all that stuff to respawn, and there's my afternoon wasted.